Greetings and salutations, my dear audience. This is Joe St. Egg Benedictus, just coming at you with a book review on one of my favorite authors and a book that I found deep in my church library when we were cleaning out the library. But first, I want to give a shout out to my pal Mike and to all of the visionaries and mystics out there. And before I get to the book review, just want to say that I found a treasure, something rare that not many people will be able to see in the next few weeks or near future, and that is a roll of toilet paper. Beautiful, isn't it? In its rare natural form. So soft and pliable. Single hole, double ply. It's absolutely incredible. You just can't believe it. When you look at it, it's amazing. And if you want to buy it, it's on sale, starting at $20. So I wanted to match Come for Eggs auction for this beautiful, rare object. All right, with that said, just want to jump into a quick book review of this book that I found, as I mentioned, in the church library when we were cleaning out the library, The Stem of Jesse by Will Campbell. One of the things that I really love about this book is two things. First, it is by Brother Will Campbell, one of my heroes. He was a Southern Baptist, a bit of irreverent in his approach to theology and church. He fought in the civil rights movement and was an advocate for women in ministry and rights, equal rights, and just an amazing, amazing person. He was considered to be a preacher without a steeple. That's what he called himself because he was so irreverent. No church would have him. But he did travel across the South, writing and doing all kinds of race reconciliation work, and his books are amazing. He's an award-winning author of Brother to a Dragonfly and several others. My first book that I read by him was 40 Acres and a Goat, which was one of my favorite books and just instills you and inspires you with courage and just passion, not only for faith, but for confronting the challenges of our day. The second reason why I wanted this book, Stem of Jesse, is because it deals with my alma mater, Mercer University, and the issue of integration in the 60s as Mercer was waging a war for integration on the one hand, and many Georgian Baptists in the state of Georgia Baptists waging against it, against integration in a time when Brown versus Board of Education was really being implemented not only in public school but also in arenas of higher learning. Mercer University, being a private education or private facility, private school, came under scrutiny because the question was, do private schools need to abide by the law of integration? And one of the presidents in the late 50s, early 60s, Rufus Harris of Mercer University, said, yes, we should integrate. It's the right thing to do. It's the godly thing to do. It's the Christian thing to do, but against much consternation. So this is a book, a history of the war that had been waged over integrating Mercer University. You can see I'm not through it yet. Here's my awesome bookmark. I use baseball cards as bookmarks. This is David Price of the Boston Red Sox. Hope no one is offended. No Red Sox fans are offended that I'm using it as a bookmark, but that's what I do. So I haven't finished the book yet, only to say that I am still learning so many things from the book and wanted to share those inspirational lessons with you, my dear audience. Lesson number one. The people who opposed integration and race reconciliation were so vehement against integration that they didn't even want to have a conversation about integration. And so they were arguing with all kinds of, using all kinds of legal arguments in order to argue against the Board of Trustees, against integrating Mercer, when Mercer was trying to accept its first African student, Sam Oni from Nigeria, who had come to the faith through Ghanaian missionaries or missionaries to Ghana. And so the big stink was, do we allow this student in? And one of the things that I find is that the fundamentalists and others who opposed integration didn't even want to have a conversation. They said even the conversation was worthy enough to pull funding or to hold back donations. I find that to be the case in my own ministry, that when somebody opposes something, they don't even want to talk about it. And even in our politics today, we can't even talk about issues that matter, or else we jump to cliches or platitudes or our Fox or CNN news positions rather than having a conversation. But conversations matter. And one of the things I find most intriguing is that the case for integration was always on the lines of morality, whereas the case against integration always tied to the letter of the law. It's funny how people use the law in order to continue the status quo, and that the prophetic tradition of pushing against the status quo for progress and for what would be godly always requires a morality or values-based vote. It's funny how Christians don't, who oppose something that is good for them, go to the law rather than values, because Jesus was not a big fan of the law. He said, "I did not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill the law," meaning Jesus didn't go for the letter of the law, but rather the spirit of the law. And it's funny how people don't even want to have a conversation. Number two, it just takes a few courageous people to make a difference in the world. The Board of Trustees and the president of Mercer University were in the minority with pushing for integration. They were joined by many Baptist and religious advocates within the community, but they were opposed by the Georgia Baptist Convention and by so many Baptist associations. But yet it only took a few people to really be courageous, to stand fast, to argue what they believed in and vote and shape policy according to their convictions in order to bring integration to my alma mater, Mercer University, in order to bring this one student, Sam Oney, to the United States and educate him at Mercer. You see, it's kind of hypocritical where you think you can send missionaries to a place, get them Christianized, and then all of a sudden refuse them in churches and higher education institutions in America. So you do the math on the hypocrisy of that. But that's what happened. But it takes a few courageous people to see the convictions of the right thing to do of Christ through, and that's what happens. And then the third thing is a quote that Brother Campbell uses in this book on, it's a proverb. It's actually the quote that I found on the next chapter I'm reading. "When elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers." I've had my own church fights in the past, political fights, and I know that when people fight politically, it is the environment that suffers, the grass that suffers. People get hurt. We use words that we regret, and sometimes our political or church squabbles can lead to devastating consequences that divide Christ's church or sow seeds of discord or lead to animosity or resentment. And, for the important things that we need to talk about, be it inclusion or be it expanding God's mission or following the Spirit into places where we least expect. Not only do we have to have a conversation, and not only do we need courage, but we also need to know that the language we use can be really hurtful and turn people away from the very cause of Christ for which we are fighting for. So I've seen that in my own church history, passing through or experiencing or witnessing church splits of how many people are just decimated by that, and how many people don't go to church anymore because they don't want to be a part of the politics. What? I mean, come on, people. If you're fighting, who wants to be a part of that group, especially when it's voluntary? Nobody wants to take their time on a Sunday morning and go and see a bunch of people fight. So anyway, my adage is have conversations that matter. To have some courage, be bold in God's ever-expanding love and inclusion. And thirdly, just make sure you're not going to do anything today that you're going to regret tomorrow. And remember, don't wake the bear.